Is Grand Slam track on its final hurdle? Plus, we're live at the U.S. Open in Oakmont as Scottie Scheffler tries for the second largest purse on the PGA Tour. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Front Office Sports Today from FOS Studios here in New York City. I'm Baker Machado.
And I'm Derryl Barnes in for Renee, who's on assignment. Thanks so much for joining us. Every weekday, we're chatting the biggest stories happening in the business and culture of sports. And coming up, NASCAR legend Jeff Gordon joins us in studio today about his new documentary on Prime Video. But first, let's dive into the headlines on the shoot-arounds.
Yes, indeed, Derryl. Good to have you here. And let's talk about the future of Grand Slam track. That's the professional racing league formed by Olympic champion Michael Johnson. And it's up in the air as Front Office Sports can exclusively report that the league has canceled their final race in LA, which was going to be held later this month. And an all-hands meeting is scheduled Thursday to discuss the future of the company. Now, it sounds like there's a myriad of reasons, Derryl, as to why this final race in Los Angeles it seems to be canceled here.
Yeah, so sources told FOS multiple reasons, including new investor who's maybe a little more worried about preparing for next year, the protests in LA going on, and also a poor lease agreement with UCLA. But the big thing was that they emphasized that this is not a money issue, right? They wanted to make sure that was clear. And I was actually at the Grand Slam track meet in Philadelphia, and that was kind of the thing. They cut it from 3 days to 2 days. Michael Johnson didn't say it was a money thing. He said, we just wanted the meet to flow faster. And so then the meet flowed faster. Michael Johnson assured us that the money looked promising for years to come. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, and he's talked a lot about that he was upset in some of the races that enough fans even showed up for that.
Out in Kingston, Jamaica.
Exactly, as well. So again, this story is developing. Continue to watch Front Office Sports' social and our website, frontofficesports.com, for continuing updates on this story. Elsewhere, Bengals first-round pick Shamar Stewart left the team's final day of mandatory minicamp. This over an ongoing contract dispute. This all according to ESPN's Adam Schefter. Now, the 17th pick in the draft has yet to sign his rookie deal or even participate in offseason workouts. And Derryl, ESPN is saying that this dispute centers on contract language that can even void future guaranteed money here for Stewart.
Yeah, I mean, Stewart was there at practice originally, but then left today because he didn't want to be a distraction. I mean, he's asking for things that have been in other rookie contracts given out by the Bengals. I mean, he really just wants his contract language to be the same as the last two picks, first-round picks that they've had, who were picked later in the first round than him.
Yeah, and we should also note other Bengals like Trey Henderson also having contract disputes with the team as well. Just for those wondering, if it even gets to this extreme level, Stewart could re-enter the draft in 2026, but he would have to sit out the entire year, and then that would make him eligible to be drafted by another team outside of Cincinnati, but then you would lose, a year of work, of progress. Your money probably would go down as a result, so this would be kind of a nightmare for him if he did that.
Yeah, that's, again, the big extreme. Yeah. Probably not going to get to that point, but the weirdest case scenario. All
right, elsewhere, the Pacers' big win in Game 3 of the NBA Finals improved their betting odds, but Indy is still the series underdog that despite a 2-1 lead. The Thunder were the overwhelming favorites heading into the finals, but now, Derryl, the most likely outcome, according to ESPN Bet, is OKC winning in 7 games instead of a sweep that was originally projected. And while we don't have the ratings yet for Game 3, the first 2 have really struggled, averaging just over 8.8 million viewers. Game 2 ratings were down almost 30%, Derryl, from last year's Mavericks-Celtics series.
I mean, I don't even want to talk about viewership numbers. I think enough has been said about that closer series, right? Viewership increases, but I mean, just the fact that so many people have lost money betting on this series is just so funny to me. I mean, we're projecting a sweep, and now we have people like Jay-Z who've lost over $1 million.
Crazy. That's a crazy. And you're right. The original projections was OKC just to go through this and barnstorm the Pacers. Even after last night's game and Halliburton, how great he was for them for the Pacers at the end, this could be a really good series towards the end, and that changes so much of the rate of the odds and all of this. I almost wonder though, because these are two small market franchises, if the ratings get better if it gets to a 6 or 7 games.
Yeah, I mean that's probably the expectation that everyone has. Better series, better games, more people watching. But if you love basketball, everyone keeps saying this is a series to watch.
I think so. All right, after 2 big overtime games to start the Stanley Cup Finals, Florida cruised 6-1 over Edmonton in Game 3. So can the Oilers even things up tonight? Or will the Panthers move one victory away, Derryl, from a Stanley Cup repeat? Also, what does the offseason hold for Panther star Sam Bennett? Well, let's take a look at that and so much more in our main event. And joining us on the ground in Sunrise, Florida, all ahead of Game 4's big game Stanley Cup Finals tonight is TNT play-by-play broadcaster Kenny Albert. Kenny, thank you so very much for joining us. So happy that you're here. Just give us a sense of what the vibe is like this morning in Florida ahead of this really big game, potentially for the Florida Panthers to go up 3-1 here.
Well, guys, it's great to be with you. We've had a couple of off days here in Florida. Great weather. It's been a tremendous atmosphere throughout the Stanley Cup Final. The first two games in Edmonton were unbelievable as far as the excitement level on the ice. A lot of first period goals in both games, comebacks in the third period, the late goal by Corey Perry in Game 2, sending it to overtime, a couple of overtime winners. And then Game 3, obviously a little bit different here in South Florida, 6-1, a lot of power plays, a lot of penalties. Edmonton, certainly on a parade to the penalty box throughout that game, and big one tonight. I mean, either Edmonton ties it up and goes home 2-2 for the next game on Saturday, or Florida would have a chance to win the Cup at Rogers Place on Saturday. So we'll see what develops tonight. We're about to talk to both coaches in a little while, so should be a great atmosphere tonight, as always, over in Sunrise, Florida.
And Kenny, you're talking about some of those guys out there. How about Sam Bennett? I mean, one of the favorites for the Conn Smythe Trophy, and is a free agent after this. How do you think his run, kind of affects his value going into free agency?
I think the dollar number is going up with each and every game. He is an unrestricted free agent, and he's had an unbelievable playoff with 14 goals, 4 more than any other player. Leon Draisaitl has 10. Bennett's a guy who was a huge part of the last 2 runs to the Stanley Cup Final for the Panthers. They got there in 23, lost to the Vegas Golden Knights, and then obviously won the Cup last year. And he's one of those guys that, maybe the stats during the regular season don't stand out, but once the playoffs start, you think back to Justin Williams, who was nicknamed Mr. Game 7, Mark Messier, and so many others who were outstanding playoff performers, and obviously Messier did it during the regular seasons as well. But Bennett's adding his name to that list. You look at what Brad Marchand has done for the Panthers. He's playing in his 4th Stanley Cup Final, and he's scored some huge goals, a couple of overtime goals in these playoffs. But Bennett's going to make a lot of money, whether he stays here in South Florida or goes somewhere else during the offseason.
Let's talk about another thing in the record books, Kenny, and that's you. Tonight's Game 4 will be your 1,486th either game for hockey, football, or baseball on a national network, which is just an insane amount of games. You just passed your dad, the great Marv Albert, for second all-time for most games called. What does that record mean to you, and especially passing your dad for this?
And by the way, it's his birthday today, so I have to give
Oh my God, even better.
Happy birthday.
It's incredible that people keep those lists for broadcasters, and I know they're out there on the internet. Now that's not the total list of games we've all worked. It doesn't include all the thousands of local games.
Yep.
But it's kind of surreal to see my name on that list with so many other all-time greats. And like you said, that includes national games in the NFL, NHL, Major League Baseball, and NBA. So, just to be included on those lists is incredible. And one of my partners, Eddie Olczyk, worked his 1,000th national game the other day, Game 3, and he played in over 1,000 NHL games, and now he's worked 1,000 on the national side. So quite the accomplishment from Eddie as well.
Wow.
I mean, you said the guys on the internet keeping that list. You're not keeping a game
Yes, this is
yourself.
my 6,000th over here. It's like a ledger.
I actually wish I kept the list from the start, but that wasn't the case. I kind of could figure out an approximate number for each sport, but as far as the total number, the number you mentioned is pretty much accurate. And then you add in probably 2,500 games on local networks through the years on both TV and radio. So the total number is probably somewhere around 4,000.
Kenny, congratulations on all the success. Also, big happy birthday to your dad. Congratulations, and have a great Game 4 tonight on TNT.
All right, thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. Enjoy the game.
Thank you. That's Kenny Albert, of course, calling the game tonight on Game 4 on TNT. And don't go anywhere, guys. We've got a lot more front office sports today headed your way right after this. Welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today. I'm Baker Machado, and earlier, NASCAR legend Jeff Gordon joined me and Renee in studio to talk about his new Prime Video documentary, American Thunder, NASCAR to Le Mans. Plus, he talked about Kyle Larson's attempt at the infamous double and so much more. Take a look. Welcome back, friends, to Front Office Sports Today with Renee Washington. I'm Baker Machado. Now, we all know about the grueling race of Le Mans, where 24 hours, a lot of stuff happens. But Yes, exactly. But we're going inside NASCAR's run at Le Mans in this new documentary on Prime Video called American Thunder, and it's premiering on Prime Video on June the 12th. And we're very excited to be joined in studio by the executive producer of this film, some guy named Jeff Gordon. Hi, Jeff.
Hey,
Good
guys.
to see you.
Hey, Jeff. Great to be here.
So, this happened all the way in 2023. We all saw the headlines of it, but now we're actually getting an inside look at how this all came about. Tell us a little bit about this project and what made you want to executive produce this.
Yeah, this actually goes all the way back to 1976, where the France family took NASCAR to Le Mans with stock cars at that time. And I think they saw the appeal where the European fan base for Le Mans loved the roar and the thunder of these big V8s.
Right.
But they didn't have the reliability. There's just a lot of things they were missing to be able to actually compete. So Jim France, the current founder and operator of NASCAR, he said, you know what, I want to make this dream happen for my family, for myself. Let's do it again. And how are we going to go about this? We're going to team up with Hendrick Motorsports and Chevrolet and Goodyear, and we're going to go do it right. And I'm going to get an invitation called Garage 56, which is just a very unique invitation. So you're not really competing in a GT or prototype class. It's really an exhibition class, but you're still on the track.
Right.
And we're competing with ourselves for, speed and the pride of America, as well as these brands that we're representing. And so this is really the culmination of how that came together, what it took to take a NASCAR stock car that is used to racing on the high banks of Daytona and Charlotte, Indianapolis, and go to this countryside of Le Mans, 8.5-mile grueling course, grueling event, 24 hours, and compete at a high level. And I think we surpass our expectations.
Yes,
I love
spoiler
that.
alert, by the way. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, what I really appreciate, Jeff, as a NASCAR Hall of Famer yourself that's won the Cup Series 4 times and has obviously breathed NASCAR. I loved how you mentioned in this partnership wanting to revive NASCAR with this $2 trillion partnership. What do you feel was missing or that you noticed changed in NASCAR that you wanted to bring back or even just introduce to the world?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we have a new car that was introduced, about 3 or 4 years ago called the Gen 7 car. It offers the ability to go do street courses and more road racing and possibly go and actually compete because at Le Mans, because it has an independent rear suspension, it has a transaxle. But I think, NASCAR is definitely making some great moves. Like I mentioned, the street course in downtown Chicago. We're going to Mexico City for the very first time international. There is a lot of international appeal. Certainly North America, if you think of Canada and Mexico, but I think we could go to South America, and who knows what's beyond that. I mean, we went to Japan way back in the 90s. So NASCAR is making a lot of great moves. I think we've got a great amount of star power, especially at Hendrick Motorsports with Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott, William Byron, and Alex Bowman. And so there's a lot of good things that are happening in the sport. But this is just one of the ways I think we can showcase. A lot of people don't appreciate the engineering and the technology and the ability that we have as teams to produce a fast race car. I think this really showcased what NASCAR is truly all about.
And by the way, that NASCAR Cup Series race in Mexico City is streaming exclusively on Prime Video on June the 15th. Let's talk about Kyle Larson, because we actually had him in this seat just a few weeks ago as he was preparing for the infamous double that he was doing over Memorial Day weekend. He's part of Hendrick Motorsports with you as well.
Yes.
How did you sort of help him prepare for something like this? Because look, this is a really difficult feat for somebody to do. I think Tony Stewart was the last person that actually finished it.
Yeah, I mean, it is a very challenging one. Just weather and logistics alone. There's about a 30-minute window that you have to be able to pull this off, to do both races, completing them. But I didn't have to teach or help Kyle Larson with anything. I mean, this is a guy that jumps in every kind of different race car, from dirt to pavement, stock cars to IndyCar, and can compete at a high level. So I think for us, it was Hendrick Motorsports teaming up with Arrow McLaren and just getting sponsors like Prime, Hendrick Cars, and being able to put together great race teams on both ends of it in Charlotte as well as in Indianapolis.
Through your experiences working with, someone like Kyle Larson and through your role in Hendrick Motorsports, as well as even producing and working with Amazon, what have you noticed for the next generation of professional drivers as really the evolution of how the sports change in terms of their experiences?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we know how much social media and content, is changing. So work on your media presence and your fan base, and just because it's all about selling sponsorship, it's all about building fan base. If you come to Hendrick Motorsports, we're gonna provide you a great race team that you can go out and compete at a high level. But it takes a lot more than that to get to the Elite Cup level, as well as garner the partners and the sponsors and the fans that it takes to elevate the whole sport up.
With the time we have left with you, Jeff, we were joking before this interview started that you now have a real job.
Yeah,
where you're basically
real job, Jeff
you're in a suit, you're doing all these other things. What's sort of that life been like in that transition from being a NASCAR legend to now running businesses, fatherhood, all these other things that now you're doing on a day-to-day basis
way from
now?
the rainbow car.
Yeah. I feel like my whole life I've been preparing for this, honestly. I mean, I started racing when I was 5.5 years old. When I came to Hendrick Motorsports, I was 21 years old. I was fortunate, to only drive for Hendrick Motorsports my whole career. I got a lifetime contract in 1999. So I've been, behind the scenes as an equity owner and partner with Rick Hendrick for many, many years. And when I retired in 2015, it was sort of the plan of, at some point, I did a stint with Fox Sports and broadcasting, but it was really the plan for me to be in a role like this. I just didn't realize that I was going to enjoy it as much as I am.
That.
Yeah, I love the business side of it. I love working with the drivers, the teams, the marketing side, the partnerships that we have. Learning more from my hero and mentor, Rick Hendrick, and just trying to, we just celebrated 40 years at Hendrick Motorsports last year, and now it's all about the next 40, and I'm looking forward to being a part of that.
Amazing. And one quick line, if you got 10 seconds left, what would be next for you that you want to do?
Oh my gosh. Win the championship in 2020.
That's easy. Also, his other thing he wants us all to do is watch American Thunder NASCAR to Le Mans. It is premiering on June 12th on Amazon Prime Video. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us.
Appreciate it.
And we got a lot more stuff headed your way with Front Office Sports Today right after this. And welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today with Derryl Barnes in for Renee Washington. I'm Baker Machado. Now, Renee is boots on the ground in Pittsburgh for us on site at the U.S. Open. Renee, all yours.
Thanks, Baker. I'm excited to be joined by our FOS newsletter writer, David Rumsey, who's been here all week for the U.S. Open. And as we're at the beautiful driving range of Oakmont Country Club for the 125th U.S. Open, NBC's media deals have been something that you've written about and talking about who's going to be next to have the deal once it expires in 2026. And you're saying there's months possibly until that deal gets done. What seems to be the key factors that might be prolonging this process?
That's right, Renee. So NBC will have next year's U.S. Open, the 2026 edition from Shinnecock Hills. But after that, their rights are up. USGA, which operates U.S. Open, is discussing a new media deal potentially with NBC, but they're also having other suitors. And the CEO of the USGA, Mike Wan, this week at his press conference said that they're not weeks away from a deal. They're at least months away. So we might get something by the end of the year, probably maybe even into next year.
Wow, it's wild. And then also something that you just heard announced yesterday, which was a little bit later than usual, the purse, $21.5 million. And it's no change from previous times. What are your thoughts on really just how that was rolled out and being a little bit delayed, but also just that price point?
Yeah, so typically the U.S. Open has been increasing ever since 2021, multi-million-dollar increases every year. And this year they stayed the same at $21.5 million, which is still the largest purse in men's golf. And the U.S. Open on the women's side is also the largest on the women's side, $12 million, but there was no increase there. I think they've just kind of reached a point where they're still the top dog, and there is so much money coming into golf elsewhere, Live Golf, the PGA Tour. They're trying to figure out how are we going to stay on top and what are the financial benefits of increasing versus just kind of staying where we are. Maybe next year they'll go up a little bit more.
Well, speaking of where we are, at the Oakmont Country Club, it's actually one of the key sites for the U.S. Open, and there's been 10 different tournaments that have come through Oakmont, but it's also one of the toughest courses, especially with the slickness of the surface. A lot of golfers struggle at times out here, but fans love that, David. What keeps bringing people back and also making this an anchor site for the U.S. Open that makes it so valuable?
Right. So Oakmont is now one of 3 anchor sites for the U.S. Open, along with Pebble Beach out in California, Pinehurst #2 in North Carolina, where the USGA built another headquarters down there. In Oakmont, they've been here a record 10 times more than any other course, like you said. And the fans love it. There are going to be 200,000 fans here this week. The rough is 5.5 inches thick. People like to see, golf fans love to see the best players in the world struggle, because so often they're 20 under par and just kind of making birdies. Birdies are hard to find out here at Oakmont and always at the U.S. Open. I think that's why fans find it special.
And speaking of some of the best golfers that may struggle, one has been struggling because he's getting a little bit older. Phil Mickelson has been already notoriously heard. This might be his last U.S. Open, which is sad. That's such a legend of the game. What do you think is the realistic future, I should say, for Phil Mickelson and what we can expect?
So Phil turns 55 next Monday, and this is last year that he's exempted the U.S. Open from his 2021 victory at the PGA Championship. So he could try to qualify next year. I don't know if he'd be up for it, and if he did, it's tough to qualify. So there's other avenues depending on how he plays at Live Golf and just going through the actual qualifying with 10,000 other people that annually try to make the U.S. Open. So he's been a legend of the game, like you said. Unfortunately, he has a ton of runner-ups at the U.S. Open and never got it done to complete the career Grand Slam like Rory McIlroy did early this year. But he'll get a strong reception out here this week. I've seen a lot of fans during practice rounds following him around. And if he does make it back, maybe for another U.S. Open later this decade, that'd be awesome too.
Well, it's been a beautiful start to the U.S. Open here at the Oakmont Country Club. Of course, David, you're doing a tremendous job here, covering all the excitement for everyone. And with that, Baker, we're going to go enjoy some more golf here in this beautiful day and send it back to you for more to see what's bubbling over at the FOS water cooler.
Thanks, Renee. All right, ahead of the FIFA Club World Cup, Derryl, video surfaced online of MetLife Stadium installing a grass field over the traditional artificial turf. That's because grass is a requirement by FIFA to hold soccer matches. Well, the NFL Players Association took notice of this. They posted on X, "Looks nice," hashtag safer fields. That is, artificial turf has long been a source of contention between the Giants, Jets, and the players around the league, especially after Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles on the field during that 2024 season. I mean, the owner of the Giants, John Mara, says it's almost impossible for us to do this because you have 2 teams playing there. The grass would be a disaster. Plus, you have concerts and events and all these other things happening here. But it seems pretty easy that they just put it in right there.
I mean, yeah, he's sitting here blaming Beyonce coming out of MetLife as the reason why.
I get your point.
No, but I think that the NFLPA is making the argument that the World Cup has shown the world that if they wanted to, they could change all the NFL stadiums to grass fields. I mean, remember, the NFL players prefer playing on grass. They say that they feel like it's safer. That's why we saw the tweet saying, safer fields. But the league just keeps saying no because the data doesn't necessarily suggest that that's actually safer.
Well, and we also should note that the Jets and the Giants have to come to an agreement on this, and Woody Johnson famously has been rated one of the worst owners by the Players Association as well. All right, coming up, guys, on FOS tomorrow, we're tackling women's football ahead of the Women's National Football Conference's final this weekend. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.